Hello and welcome to grammar class. Today's topic is monotransitive, ditransitive and ambitransitive verbs. Well, as you know, if a verb takes an object after it in a sentence, it's called a transitive verb. On the other hand, if a verb has no object to it, it's called an intransitive verb. For example, in the sentence, Tom bought a new car, the verb bought has an object, a new car, so it's a transitive verb. But in the sentence, the baby is smiling, the verb is smiling takes no object, so it's an intransitive verb. In short, a transitive verb acts upon an object, while an intransitive verb has no object to it. But sometimes an intransitive verb may be followed by a prepositional phrase in a sentence. For example, the sun rises in the east. In this sentence, the verb rises is intransitive because it has no object, but it's followed by the prepositional phrase in the east, which is serving as an adverbial phrase here and not an object. So now we know that a transitive verb takes one or more objects after it in a sentence. There are three types of transitive verbs in English grammar, namely monotransitive verb, ditransitive verb and ambitransitive verb. First up, monotransitive verb. Well, mono means one. So if a transitive verb takes only one object after it in a sentence, it's called a monotransitive verb. And the single object of a monotransitive verb is known as its direct object. For example, in the sentence, she wrote a letter, the verb wrote has only one object to it, a letter, so it's a monotransitive verb. And a letter is the direct object of the monotransitive verb wrote. Similarly, in the next example, it is a monotransitive verb because it has only one object, biscuits. So in this sentence, it is a monotransitive verb and biscuits is the direct object. But what about ditransitive verbs? Well, di means two. So if a verb takes two objects after it in a sentence, it's called a ditransitive or bitransitive verb. So clearly, a ditransitive verb has two objects. One is called the direct object and the other is known as the indirect object. Now see some examples of ditransitive verbs on your screen. In the sentence, he taught me physics, the verb taught takes two objects, me and physics. Hence, it's a ditransitive verb. And then, I will gift him a car. In this sentence also, the verb gift takes two objects, him and a car. Hence, gift is also a ditransitive verb here. In the last example, the verb wrote has two objects, a letter and him after the preposition to. So, wrote is also a ditransitive verb in this sentence. As I told you earlier, a ditransitive verb has a direct object and an indirect object in a sentence. We also know that an object receives the action of the verb in a sentence. It's either a noun or a pronoun, denoting a person or a thing. But then, what are direct and indirect objects in English grammar? Well, by definition, the direct object denotes the person or thing that directly receives the action of the verb. While on the other hand, the indirect object is the person or thing that indirectly receives the effect of the verb's action. Now, if you find the definitions difficult to understand, here is a quick fix. This is really an easy trick to differentiate between the direct and indirect objects. If we ask a question by putting whom or what after the verb, the answer we get identifies the direct object. But if we ask the question to or for or from plus whom or what after the verb, we can identify the indirect object from the answer. So this is how we can find out the direct and the indirect objects of a ditransitive verb. Now here in the first example, they offered me a job. Offered is a ditransitive verb which has the indirect object me and the direct object a job. The indirect object is generally a living being or a human being, while the direct object is usually a non-living being. In the sentence, I told her a ghost story. Told is a ditransitive verb and its indirect object is her and direct object is a ghost story. Now the indirect object generally comes before the direct object in a sentence. However, it may come after the direct object as well. And remember, when the indirect object comes after the direct object in a sentence, it comes in a prepositional phrase of to or for or from. For example, in the sentence, they offered a job to me, the direct object, a job has come first. So the indirect object, me, has come in the prepositional phrase to me at the end of the sentence. Similarly, in the next sentence, the direct object, a ghost story, has come first. So before the indirect object, her, to has been used. And in the last example, the direct object, a wrist watch, has come before the indirect object, me. So the preposition for has been used before the indirect object. Now let's learn the ambitransitive verb. Well, the prefix ambi means both. So ambitransitive verbs are action verbs that may be used both transitively and intransitively. In other words, an ambitransitive verb may or may not require an object in a sentence. So an ambitransitive verb is one that may be used as a transitive verb with an object to it, and at other times it may be used as an intransitive verb without an object to it. For example, in the sentence, he does not smoke, the verb smoke is intransitive because it has no object to it. But in the next sentence, the same verb smoke takes an object, Ashford cigars. Hence, smoke is a transitive verb in this sentence. Then in the sentence, she reads before going to bed, reads is intransitive because it has no object. But in the next sentence, the same verb reads takes an object, a novel. So it has become transitive here. So clearly, ambitransitive verbs may or may not take an object after it in the sentence. So they are used both transitively and intransitively. So that's it. If you liked the video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell for more grammar videos. Thank you so much.